An NPR interview this morning where the guy was talking and Siri chimed in.
Oh, really?
From his phone, from his wrist phone.
Wrist phone,
thing.
wow, like the Apple Watch?
And he couldn't turn it off and he had to go hide his watch.
All right.
On radio.
Oh, that's pretty wow.
Thank you for being here at Writers in Conversation. This is our debut show. My name is McFadyen-Ketchum. If I had a rock that was heavy enough and a good enough arm and I threw it real hard in about that direction, it would hit my house. I grew up, what, Dad? About half a mile that way.
Not even that far.
Not even that far. In Sylvan Park before it was Sylvan Park. And this theater, this is the Darkhorse Theater we're in. Now, when did y'all open, Shannon?
Oh, 1990?
Yeah, so they opened this theater before Sylvan Park was Sylvan Park, and they're one of the reasons, I think, that Sylvan Park has become Sylvan Park. Big round of applause to Darkhorse for having us. I'm a poet and all sorts of other things. I started poemoftheweek.com 13 years ago, and I have, for many, many, many years, wanted to have a literary show. Not necessarily a poetry show, not necessarily a fiction show, non-fiction show, songwriting show, but a literary show. And I've had all sorts of ideas through the years. People have been putting up with me, coming up with ideas for years and years and years and years, and never executing them because they were never good enough. I was like, nah, it's not going to work. And then recently, I've traveled all over the country. I just moved back after being away for basically 20 years. And came up with this idea that I wanted to sit down with writers of all types and have them perform for an audience, then sit down with them and pick their brain about what it is that they do. So now when I say writers, I mean all sorts of writers. I'm going to interrupt myself. In the event of an emergency, there are two ways to get out of here. One, Shannon's like, he already forgot. I knew he was going to mess this up. This little interlude. The way you came, and then the other way is down this hallway. You'll see it next time, right here.
Right.
Take a right. If you need to use the bathroom, that way, just follow the signs. Also, I need to note that Darkhorse has, of course, plays all the time. And so every time we do this, there's going to be a different set. And this is for Jack and the Giant, which is a play on Jack and the Beanstalk, right? And what dates is it going on?
It's this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and it's family friendly and a lot of music and it's lovely.
Yeah, and it provided for us this really unique set. When we first, when Jan and I first started talking about doing this, there's a play that had a bar, and it was like really cool. So we're gonna always have a different set, whatever play is going on, that's what we'll be performing in front of. So back to the main point here. So I wanted to start something where we could really pick the brain of writers. It's gonna be mostly Nashville writers, but we'll see who we can get to come. Our next show is going to be May 14th. It's mostly monthly. It's roughly the second Tuesday. We have a sort of wild schedule because Darkhorse is a very popular space to have performances. We're going to have Kendra DeCullo on May 14th, and then we're going to have another Hume Fogger. I went to Hume Fog, another Hume Fogger, and an amazing person who's here with us today, Ruby Amanfu, on June 4. And now Kendra is a poet. She just won a National Endowment for the Arts grant, which is like a real big deal. And she's just a riot. She's going to be a lot of fun. And Ruby Amanfu is a singer-songwriter. And she's going to just knock our socks off. I'm really excited, and I'm going to have to do a lot of learning to get her a good interview. I'm going to have to step up my game. And we'll see who else we have. There's a listserv out front if you want to know about future performances and things like that. Without further ado, we'll get to William R. Brown, Bill Brown, Mr. Brown, as some call him, just plain old Brown. It's funny, I was talking to some friends recently about how to introduce Mr. Brown. He has been writing poems for 50 years? 35 years. Publishing. So he's been writing poems for 85 years. No, he's been writing poems. He's been at this for a long time. And welcome, thank you for coming. And he has taught at all levels, all over the place. He is sort of, I don't know if this is what I call him or what everybody else calls him. He's the poetry godfather of Nashville. There are so many poets. I'm one of them. There are so many poets. And really, I shouldn't say that. Just writers, thinkers, philosophers, lovers of life who've come from this man. It's an undeniable fact of this city. And I'm just so thrilled to bring this gem of a person to all of you. Some of you are going to meet him tonight. Some of you know him intimately. Some of you have been married for 95 years. Some of you have been married for quite some time. So I'm just really thrilled to have Mr. Brown here. His most recent collection is The Cairns. It's for sale out front. After the show, we'll be selling books. He's got 5 books in print, 10 books total, right? 11. With this one, it's 11. And so he's got 5 for sale out there. And he has been, it's funny when you say, you've been writing poetry for 50 years, right? He goes, no, 35. Well, publishing. He's literally been publishing poems for 35 years. I turned 38 2 Fridays back. So this is pretty remarkable. And I'm just really thrilled to have him. This is his most recent book. This is a new and selected, and I'll go into it more in the interview, but just to give you a little background on what a new and selected means. It means that it's a selection of from all of his books over the years, plus some new poems in it. As you can see, it's pretty thick, lovely book. And when someone gets a new and selected, it means that they are officially one of the great poets of our time. Okay, they don't just do this because you have a bunch of books. You have to be somebody that people really want to have a survey of their work. So I'm very excited he's going to be reading from this, from 35 years of publishing. I will read his official bio, and then I'll get out of the way and let Mr. Brown, Bill Brown, do his thing. Bill Brown holds a degree in history from Bethel College and graduate degrees in English from the Breadloaf School of English, Middlebury College, and George Peabody College. He's the author of 10 poetry collections and a writing textbook on which he collaborated with Malcolm Glass. During the past 30 years, he has published hundreds of poems and articles in college journals, magazines, and anthologies. In 1999, I love that in his bio we're going back to 1999 and it's 2019, Brown wrote and co-produced the instructional television series Student-Centered Learning for Nashville Public Television. That was also incidentally the last year of the Hume Fogg. Starting in 1983, Brown directed the writing program at Hume Fogg Academic Magnet School in Nashville for 19 years. He retired from Hume Fogg in May 2003. We were all very upset with him, and still are, for doing that, and accepted a part-time lecturer's position at Peabody College at Vanderbilt University. In 1995, the National Foundation for Advancement in the Arts named him Distinguished Teacher in the Arts. Brown has been a scholar in poetry at the Breadloaf Writers Conference, a fellow at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and a 2-time recipient of fellowships in poetry from the Tennessee Arts Commission. In 2011, the Tennessee Writers Alliance Award awarded Brown Writer of the Year. He and his wife, Suzanne, live in the hills of Robertson County with a tribe of cats. Mr. Brown.
It's fun to be the sort of guinea pig of this event that is going to start taking place. And I know Kendra, she's wonderful. And then Ruby is a close friend of mine and one of the best singer-songwriters that I think exists on the planet. And Anyway, I'm going to try to read around 30 minutes from my new book, and then we'll see how the interview goes. And I'm going to start with the title poem for Cairns, which most people in Tennessee say Carnes, but it's pronounced Cairns in English. And in England. And it's stacked stones, and usually put up as a guide, giving you directions of which way to go on a trail. And they ask you not to build cairns in the stream because it ends up upsetting the environment. So I always try to add that. The cairns. They're stacked beside the creek on a hidden gravel road. Patience and craft, the artful searching, seeing, chipping, shaping, mostly limestone, each rock, millions of years forming, fossilized, story-filled, itself a cairn. The hours spent in rugged contemplation, water gurgle, wind and leaves, the forest sway, a present for those who pass as the earth crumbles in time what human hands have made. I stack words to remember what words alone can't say. The tongue is an eye, a poet wrote, not just a choking muscle fumbling with age. The earth, a grave of lost words, stones, and children's bones. A cairn itself, crude and holy. The gift is in the labor, Mother taught. Scraped palms, broken nails, tired backs, the ordered wonder of shape. I'm going to start with just a couple of poems for the first section after cairns. This is a poem, I guess, published in Tar River Review in North Carolina. It's called This Morning, and there's a quote by William Stafford. Every glance at the world around you will be a sort of salvation. Rain, night breeze, my home's green world, oak, hickory, maple, gum, umbrella, the long porch, and its herb pots, mint, basil, rosemary, lemon, sage. I place a gala apple on the table to honor Eve, and the speckled king snake climbing in the rose of Sharon. How fortunate ancient symbols at peace in my garden. No damning, no killing of paschal lambs, no neighbor turned into salt before her daughters. Not today. This May morning, all are welcome, especially the Jehovah's Witnesses canvassing our county road with smiling pamphlets in which heaven resembles a summer picnic after church, except there are no gravestones to attach plastic flowers. Mist rises from Sulphur Creek like incense, and I think how Mother loved the scent of plowed fields after rain, how one can almost hear new seeds dreaming the verb to be. Today I am a child learning to sing, a newt growing a new foot, the sound of rain dripping through leaves. And the next poem is the last one from the first section that I'll read. And this poem is about something I learned to be very true. Quite often, tough times, the depression, the recession, teach you more about life than the good times. And this is a poem called In Praise of Drought. Brown corn crinkles the color of work spots on my father's hands. Wrens circle the porch for seed, drink from metal pot I leave in the yard. Drought time, a place in my mother's life she couldn't leave in farm country. A place that scalds the soul, brings memories of grandparents and cousins in fields, casting fists of dust, an omen sweet Jesus won't fix. 6 months of labor flushed down the dung hole. Mother woke in the night remembering porch whispers. A drought child then, hearing language of failed crops, whir of cicadas in late July, not words so much as voice tones, and silence between talk. Why ache helps children know family better. How chosen words, looks away, reveal selves that don't populate breakfast or Sunday dinners. Praise be to moments true as dust and scorched earth, heartbreak, powdered milk, Christmas singing, and a stingy Santa Claus. Father and mother now dust, their spirits heavenward in their faith. Rain in late summer brings hope back, brings men talking trash besides pickups at the grocery store. Their hearts tied to soil surrounding barns, skies ever hopeful, ever endless. What souls learn from hard times, smiles born in love, whispers in loss. Parents' dreams of drought tight against me, taught silence mystery, who we really are, who we must be. Here's a poem from my grandparents, who were farmers, had a 270 acre farm on a place called Bible Hill above the Tennessee River. It's called On a Park Bench in Heaven. On a park bench in heaven, my grandparents sit staring through all that holiness, which glimmers, they think, like freezing rain on winter trees. They were pleased to be here at first, flattered to be taken despite all their Sunday plowing. The pearly gates are just fine, my grandmother says, but she would trade the lot for a tin of snuff. My grandfather would sell his soul for a pocket watch. He's tired of asking every saint that flies by what time it is. All this gold and silver remind them of the dining room at the Holiday Inn. What they really miss is the smell of honeysuckle, or the way woodland violet circles star trillium like a wedding quilt in spring. We've been here 20 years, my grandfather says, and to date no funerals, no sick friends, no floods, no droughts, and no nips of sour mash at the general store on Saturday afternoon. And harp music, day and night. Not one angel flat picks or sings a whiskey tenor. In the pickup glove compartment of his heart, he wonders if hell wasn't a little more like Tennessee. Night song for Robert. And this is me alone in a cabin with no electricity on top of a mountain during a terrible storm. All night trees rain leaves against the roof. Hickory, maple, oak, palmed and scraped, wood and tin, comb the air like ghost hands, freed from the arms of men who grieved with hands. And in the illogic of half-sleep, the side of my brain which understands my heart heard the song of the leaves as they tossed across the night. I've lived among these trees for years, and we have felt the sky's weight heavy on our seed. We are passengers on this gracious rock which circles a dying star. And some nights I take this on faith, that the same glue which holds my life in balance allows the earth to fly the moon like a kite and scatters these leaves through this night homeward. The next poem is Columbine, a love poem of sorts. I had to write it because Suzanne and I, my wife, walk on rivers in the mountains a great deal. And this is a story of one of those walks. But I had to write it when I realized that Columbine is Middle English from medieval Latin, meaning dove-like, comparing the inverted flower to a cluster of 5 doves. That's a poem itself. Okay. The roar of the little river as it rushes towards Cade's Cove makes intermittent conversation a shout. We point and smile, mind-reading as we course the steep bank of the stream. You wait behind a house-sized rock, grab my elbow, pull me to the stone wall where you have found the columbine. 100 blossoms grow against dark slate, purple, orchid pink, and spidery. The flowers nod their heads as the river breeze circles the canyon. You pinch one and invert it in your palm so I can see the 5 doves silhouette clustered by vein beautiful flesh. And I have to think how like your wild hair these columbine grow, delicate and spindly. You climb out on a ledge and cast the blossom into the furious spray. A trout rises slightly before the flower is swept through a long cascade. I imagine it torn in the current, freeing the 5 doves which spread wings and lift from the surface to fly into the mountains. I glance back at the muted colors and then to the bright blue of the spring sky. I say the word columbine slowly, careful to mouth the 3 syllables. Columbine, Columbine, how lovely. I turn to follow, keeping my distance from your discoveries as we go this way. Mounting potatoes, 72 for my mother. This story, the phone call at 2 a.m. was my sister saying that you had died in the emergency room, but had been shocked to life so that your pulse stabilized, and you told the doctor you remembered the whole event, heart stopping and the sharp electric trip back. He said that such a memory wasn't likely, but you stuck to your story, even during the ambulance ride to the medical center, where magical balloons sailed their timely voice through your blood to stretch the vessels which clogged your heart. Mother, today you smile at my concern, knowing what death is like. At 82, you heard no voices from beyond, no angelic music fluttering a heavenly welcome. Your faith was stuck in the strength of this world as the frantic voice commands and the laying on of fire kept you in life's routine. 2 weeks later, I marvel to watch your strong hands mound young plants in my garden, dreaming the while of new potatoes with parsley, resurrected from this simple ground. Worship. This is my poem against technology.
Here, here.
And given today, you know, I think of my first computer was given me by Middlebury College when I was teaching to be able to communicate with other teachers from Europe and across the country and in Africa with our different ideas, trying to shape our lessons, doing things. Before that, I had an electric typewriter. Anyway, I opened the wood stove and hear something escape the chimney. Maybe the ghost of last May, a month too warm for burning, when we built a roaring fire and left the doors open. There's a spirit in a stove. When I was 20, I scoffed at myths like the hearth god. At 50, I'll practice any ritual born from simple human need. God of morning coffee and Sunday papers. God of lazy lovemaking, wine and old books. God of tilling, planting, and harvesting. I won't recognize the God of television, videos, or cellular phones, but the God of tractors, handmade tools, raking leaves and sweeping the porch. Praise be to the God of sheets billowing like sails in the sun, and the dank God of storm cellars, spidery and safe. I kneel willingly to the God of stirring soup and kneading bread, to all gods of needful work. So this morning, after hearing the stove god haunt the chimney, I kindle the first fall fire to all the gods of necessity who keep us fed and warm, and to the gods of little pleasures who help us to be kind. Okay, with the help of words. And this is a poem really for my mother and my wife. It starts with a quote by Theodore Roethke, great poet. He said, "For to come upon warblers in early May was to forget time and death." Every poem about death should start with my mother's love for birds. Finches and waxwings, her favorites, though she wasn't one to quibble. An eagle dragging a carp across the sky would do. There are worse things than being dead. You might be swallowed by the daily minutiae of the great mundane, to be spit up years later wondering where your life has gone. But loving something can save you. The way finches stack a feeder, meddling each other's business until a woodpecker crashes in, littering surrounding shrubs with wings. Late summer, my wife found a hummingbird on Mount Pisgah. Its emerald wings trembled as its feet tried to grip her fingers. A ranger said, "Their lives are so short anyway." What a curious reply, I thought, but later reconsidered. Perhaps any time being a hummingbird is enough. Table 9, another grandmother poem. Imagine sitting at Cracker Barrel and looking up at the photographs on the wall and seeing your grandmother's picture. Oh, grandmother, while eating breakfast at Cracker Barrel, imagine my surprise to find your antique picture hanging in a group of a Coca-Cola sign, a stranger on a tractor, and a mule breaking sod. You taught me how to tight-line fish at Cub Creek, to spit on my hands and rub it in sand, to take an eel off a hook, to steal eggs beneath the hen, to suck on horehound, to make it last. Which cousin betrayed you? Hawked a portrait at a yard sale, not knowing that you'd end up in a chain restaurant with old-timer motif. The last time our eyes met, you were in intensive care at Madison County Hospital, hooked up to machines, your jaw set against doctors who wouldn't let your heart stop so you could drift to your just reward. Now you hang above table 9 in the non-smoking section. Honored or condemned, I don't know, to gaze at 2 eggs over easy with hash browns. Rhonda will be your server now. My father died in my arms when I was 16. This is a poem called "My Father Made Love." My father made love to failure. The curve of his lips turned down in timid sorrow to men whose promises meant little, whose greed made love to nothing. My father made love to my mother, her shoulders, her feet, her hair. He cherished the air she breathed, the air that trailed her expectations, unreached, unreachable. My father made love to the shower he crooned in, to the hymns he sang, to the grape juice he served as the blood of Jesus, his own blood mortal and sick in love. Oh, but cypress knees, birch bark, arrowheads, igneous rock, tuned motors, the ears of dogs were his lovers. My father was the man who made love to rivers, the buffalo into the duck into the Tennessee. He spread their maps on the floor and traced their flow with fingers to read his future. Cut bait, fishing line, a sculling paddle, the lugger cats he pulled from the water. He made love to anything. My father made love to campsites, to tents he staked and trenched against the coming rain. When his stars imploded, his mountains folded, his rivers drowned in a desk drawer. My father died watching Gunsmoke, died loving the carpet I laid him on, the palms I used to pump his chest, the lips I placed over his mouth. His last breath was mine. This is a little poem called "The Names of Creeks," and it was selected to go up on a stone statue in a park between Cambridge and Newton, Massachusetts. And if you ever go that way, they have 20 poems built on beautiful structures so that you can hike the trail and read the poems as you go. And this is one of them. The Names of Creeks for James Steele, the old Kentucky poet. Today the rounds of hay sit quietly in their fields. A light frost melts from their tops, steams the air like loaves of fresh bread on someone's porch. The hills, like the heads of children sleeping, are scruffed with hardwoods. They tangle with huckleberry, like my morning heart, not easy to sort through, pathless and mum. Accept whatever comes, a great poet said. I want to invert that thought. Come to whatever accepts. But the words don't make the right sense exactly. Today, sense nestles in the names of creeks. Dry Fork, crippled, troublesome, New Hope. The Light That Follows Rivers is another father poem. How could I possibly write poems about my father for 35 years? He died in my arms when I was 16. How could I know him? Natasha Trethewey wrote a beautiful pantun. That's a Malaysian form of prayer. And I used her pantun to try to talk about the tension between whether I really know my father or I make up who my father really was. The Light That Follows Rivers. And please remember this prayerful poem, pantun, is trying to repeat the same line many times like you would in a Muslim prayer. Like the light that follows rivers in the night, a figure hovers ghost-like in my dreams. My father or stranger, sometimes the same, his blue eyes stained, his thoughts to read. His gruff hands hover luminous in my dreams. Above my childhood slumber, they touch my head. His blue eyes, like his hands, I wish to read, yet I am older than my father when he died. Above my childhood slumber, they touched my head. His eyes, his hands, his storied voice, all lullabies. Though I am older than my father when he died, as men, we travel alone. I know that now. His eyes, his hands, his storied voice, his lullabies. My father, my stranger, always the same. As men, we travel lonely. I know that now. Like the rivers that follow, like the light that follows rivers in my dreams. Okay. Page 157 is called Tortoise Morning. Layman Tang, an ancient Chinese poet, said, "Even the poorest thing shines." And so I use that quote. Today, my identity will remain as nameless as the given name of the tortoise grubbing my garden. Its shell catches the sun and sends my eyes an orange, not quite any other orange. An orange Gauguin might have burnished as an idea of beauty. It holds a piece of lettuce in its mouth, like a geisha fan, and chews slowly, fanning the zinnias, the little kabuki. Maple leaves drip from last night's storm. A type of silence one can hear, like snowfall in a forest. A silence that makes you aware of the silence that is. Even the crow perched on the fence post whispers to the Mustang something about the way the pasture smells after rain. A word that can only be spoken in crow. Perhaps being nameless sharpens the senses when the sun rainbows blades of grass and morning's an infant too young to speak. Four more poems. Something Like Grace. It's a strange poem that I wasn't sure I was going to actually put in a book, and my editor decided she really wanted it. And so it starts off with a quote by the great female poet Anne Carson. She said, My religion makes no sense and does not help me. Therefore, I pursue it. I was taught that God dwelled close enough to drag my open fingers through the air of Him. Particles adrift with holy energy, blessing the hearts of hungry children and demented souls in nursing homes. Praise them. I was taught to pray for my enemies, terrorists, bigots, bullies, and investors who grow rich off the working poor. Praise them. And especially praise be to columbine, stargrass, iris, which return in my garden each spring like miracles, nudged with a little 10-10-10 that dissolves into moist soil, brought back by sacred rain. Praise them. And children, small hands, busy in wonder of their senses, may they investigate all that doesn't harm. Many things that are tiny, the creatures they study, live without injury. Thanks be to April and October for birthing what I love, to January and August for teaching me to tolerate what I don't. Creator of small industries, ants trucking leaf bits toward holes, bees dancing honeysuckle maps, homeless collecting aluminum cans from roadside ditches. Praise them. Praise them all. And praise to dark matter that holds the universe together and tears apart. And to night windows, first light, and clumsy hands that reach beyond themselves. Okay, 3 poems that are new and coming in a new manuscript that I have. The first is Truest Myth, which was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. My mother once told me the cord behind my navel is still connected to forest loam, to sea depths, to hilltop ponds, found north to south by migrating birds, to the first willow green of late March, to the last maple leaf October refuses to release, until a storm is ordered to complete the cycle so the sun and its minions won't stop myriad motions of the darkest dust. So the apple that hit Newton's head won't rise back and connect, erasing all our past, sending us east of Eden to wander the land of Nod, blanking our joys and the sorrows that made us love them. This is about a little statue that Suzanne and I bought for our mothers, the headless angel. My wife tried to glue the head back on, but it's concrete and keeps falling off. The cat tries to roll it around the porch. We bought it for the garden to honor our dead mothers, but when the head fell off, we couldn't. So it sits with the uneven chipped neck, kneeling with little hands folded in prayer, wings nestled on its back. I thought to bury her, but can't. My mother used to quote, "Angels from above, watch over those we love." This morning I put the head on a garden brick so it can watch tulips bloom. I place a cap on it to shield eyes from the sun. I'm beginning to like this new version of Winged Victory. Tiny headless child. My wife painted its toenails bright red, its wings purple. Calvin said every one of us has thousands of angels attending. Give me this little concrete beauty, her head among flowers, her squat form always in prayer. And last, I'm going to read this poem for poet Jeff Harden, who's here. I found it and I sent it to him because I don't remember writing it. But
Jeff wrote it.
Well, I wrote him to find out, actually. Because it's for him, so I assume maybe I did write it. It's called Doxology. You have to reach for something different, an old book crowned with a year of dust, or a road less traveled. Or find a dead friend's pocket knife, sharpen it anew, and shave bark off a yellow birch stick lying beside a stream. Or call Sissy, the neighbor's blue heeler, and scratch her belly when she rolls in fall leaves? Or spread your fingers, reach up and pretend you can touch the sky, mingle its molecules of blue? Dream your lifeline understands when energy and matter are one? Perhaps a distant star will let you read the braille of its prayer. Hum a doxology for morning sun sparkle, turning a spider web into a queen's necklace bejeweled. Put your ear to the ground, listen to a snail sing as it eats bacteria from rotten wood. Praise how life and death enrich the holy soul of planet Earth. Bless Newton's apple, Eve's apple. Everything must fall before it rises. Thank you so much.
One more round of applause. All right, give us a moment to reconfigure our stage here for just a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, yeah. That is you. And one more round for. That was quite a reading. That was quite a reading. We've been doing this a little while, I think.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little while. Well, it's hard to know where to begin. You have such a long poetry career. As you said, you've been publishing poems for 35 years. And as I explained to y'all earlier, this is a new and selected collection, which means that from his previous 10 books, he's selected, what, roughly
It's actually,
10?
it's mainly from 8 books,
Oh, okay.
because 2 of my chapbooks were shifted into some of my longer,
Oh, right, okay.
longer books. Yeah,
Okay, so it's mainly from 8 books,
yeah. I think I
between
published
5 and like 15 poems per.
Yeah, I think it was 18. Duh. It was 1986. I published my first book,
Okay,
and it was called Tatters.
that was 5 in 1986.
And,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, how do you put together a new and selected like this? How do you determine from 35 years of publishing your first book when I was 5, to how do you determine what in the world goes in this thing?
You need a really, really good editor. And I have one. 3 Taos Press is located in Denver and Taos, New Mexico. And about 7 years ago, they do a lot of ekphrastic writing, that's writing about art out west. And they pair you with an artist, and either the artist gives you his work, like Carmen Spirilla's carving, or you give them a poem and they make art from it. Or you write a poem about the art. So I was asked to do that in Memphis with 20 Southern poets, 20 Southern artists, 20 Western poets, 20 Western artists. And Suzanne and I spent a weekend in a hotel with all of those people, eating dinner with them, and then we spent an entire night doing that show. And it's one of the most fabulous experiences I've ever had in my life. And so then we did one in New Mexico, and then one in in Phoenix, Arizona, and so I just fell in love with and I asked her would she like to do a book. And so she did my book Elemental,
Right.
and then later she would have had this book out probably almost a year earlier, but her husband got sick.
Mm.
And her name's Andrea Watson, and she was an outstanding writer herself, but she says yes, no, maybe, and maybe means no. So, I mean, you just sort of get that in your head. So getting an editor like that,
So she went through everything.
I gave her everything that I wanted to consider,
Okay.
and
Okay.
she just,
Bang.
that's right.
Cutthroat.
She kept one, she didn't want two tortoise poems. One in the first part of the book and one in the last part of the book. And I wanted two. That's the only thing she let me do, basically. Everything else, she wanted it because she was publishing it and that's what she wanted. And I trust her anyway, so that's how it happened.
Interesting. So you're a tortoise lover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed. Can you read the Karens for us again? Do you mind doing that again for me?
We'll do it.
It's the first poem in the book. It's obviously the title poem.
I guess I love Karens, and I used to backpack a lot on streams, and I noticed people would put cairns up places where I needed to stop and look at a waterfall or make a turn or catch a trout. Anyway, and I thought when this book happened that I saw stacking words as a metaphor, so as for stacking stones. They're stacked beside the creek on a hidden gravel road. Patience and craft, the artful searching, seeding, chipping, shaping. Mostly limestone, each rock millions of years forming, fossilized, story-filled, itself a cairn. The hours spent in rugged contemplation, water gurgle, wind and leaves, the forest sway, a present for those who pass as the earth crumbles in time what human hands have made. I stack words to remember what words alone can't say. The tongue is an eye, a poet wrote, not just a choking muscle fumbling with age. The earth a grave of lost words, stones, and children's bones, a cairn itself, crude and holy. The gift is in the labor, Mother taught. Shaped palms, scraped palms, broken nails, tired backs, the ordered wonder of shape. And this has been nominated this year for a Pushcart as well.
Okay, I'm not surprised. The gift is in the labor, Mother taught.
Yeah, my mother grew up in the Depression, and she and my father, yeah.
This one thing about you is that I love that line, and ever since I've known you, and most people who know you, I think will agree with me. You're always working. When I was actually sort of, I don't know why I was surprised, but when I asked Bill to do this, and I said, "What are you going to read?" He said, "Well, I've got some new poems." I was like, "Good grief, he's already got new poems. He's got to do it selected." You're always working. And as a teacher, you always emphasized the process. And you love the product, but you always emphasize the process.
You learn by writing by doing it.
Say more about that.
Okay, William Faulkner said, it might be bad, but it's the only way to do anything really good.
Mm.
And when he said he was going to do a story, he would find a character and just take off with a piece of paper and write in everything she said, everything she did, everything. Until he got so tired he fell down and couldn't breathe anymore. And that's how his book started. Well, poems need to start that way. And it's called free writing. Bull. There's no free writing. Okay? So I started calling it fast writing.
Huh.
So what you want to do is get away from the planning so that something catches in your imagination where you can start and then suddenly it starts moving you in its way, on its own, through your imagination. Because if you know any of the brain models, the human subconscious is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's beyond anything that we could even pretend to imagine. So you've got to get there, whether it's writing a song like Ruby Amanfu, and then a lot of times it's music that will help her, or she probably will even start singing sometimes. And Jeff, every once in a while when he would come to one of my writing workshops, he would pretend to write one of my ideas, but he doesn't. Every day, every night, whatever, he writes a poem.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it is trying to let your subconscious take over, and then learn to follow the poem as it moves. And I think fiction writing can also be very similar in that process. But that's how I tried to teach it. And then I would always try to write the first 2 weeks with my students. And then after that, I was reading poetry for 4 weeks to get a grade. So, but I'd always start writing with them. I wanted them to see me moving the words, scratching the words out, writing a bad piece in order to get to a good piece, and trying to know the difference, and then sharing your work with others and hearing their words about it. Deeply important in teaching writing, and so that's what I did, and how I got started writing myself, because I've got a master's in English, and I had to teach writing. I was a history major, and so I started writing to be a better writing teacher. And then Malcolm Glass really, really helped me from Austin Peay State University, who is a magnificent poet himself. But he got me started in teaching writing. And then when I didn't publish one of my first poems I sent out, it crushed me for a year.
Yeah.
He said, "Brown, you idiot." He said, "Send it 6 places. You've got 6 different editors. You don't know if the editor had just read 20 poems or has 3 poems they already accepted in the journal, just like this one." He said, "You've got to keep it going." And once I got started doing that, I started publishing in about 1983.
How do you take rejection now?
Do what?
How do you take rejection now? Like, how's it feel?
I go on, but I've published so much in the last 3 years that I've got another book manuscript, but I can't send it out because I really need to sell this for my publisher.
I like that answer.
And so
Basically, I don't know, I don't get rejected anymore.
no, I do, yeah, no, I do. But I get a lot of, and it's a lot of times it's a surprise what they'll end up taking. And quite a lot of times you'll throw this poem in just for the heck of it, and that's the one they take, and the ones that you knew they were going to publish, they don't. So it's hard to say.
Something about that. There's maybe that's the subconscious at work as well. It's the subconscious sort of going, "Hey, put this one in that. Put this one
It's
in
very
that."
possible.
Yeah,
It
it wouldn't
is very
surprise
possible.
me.
Because they usually want 3 to 5 poems, and then some places like Southern Poetry Review in Georgia, they might want 7. They might want to see a bigger range of pieces. Yeah.
I'm going to read, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Breathe in 4. Cirrus clouds drift the sky eastward, their movement so subtle it takes a studied gaze. The skeletal crowns of hardwoods clue the eye, a mantra of sight and sound. Years ago in Daddy's car, a blood moon rose red above Grant Mill's farm, yellowed out as moons must do. My heart seared bold and thought about the stories my brothers told. The rat terrier, Bob, killed rattlesnakes. The Pritchard girl, beautiful and wild, found drowned and naked in Beach River. Her brother hanged himself in the barn. Gothic whispers of churchwomen hanging laundry saw his ghost hover over his sister's grave on Bible Hill. Hard to tell what was real, or just second-hand, coughed up in a John boat when fish weren't biting. Today, cirrus clouds drift eastward, shuffling a pale February blue. The old man I've become should let the stories die, flame with yardsticks gathered for fire. My heart seeks winter mantras,
breathe in 4, breathe out 5. Count starlings as they make a winter tree a candelabra. Whisper a prayer for the beautiful and the wild, as cirrus clouds map an eastern sky. That's the second poem in the collection, and the old man I've become should let the old stories die, yet you don't.
Okay.
Is that why you write poems?
A lot of times, yeah. A southern poet quite often is a storyteller. And my grandmother was a magnificent storyteller. And she would tell stories while we would be sitting looking at a barge coming down the Tennessee River at night, and you could hear the wail of the barge going. And and then she would start the song about the panther telling the little girl Katie to come this way, Katie, when her parents had gone into town. And this is based on Bible Hill, where they lived. My daddy knew the story. Matter of fact, the ghost that they saw over the dead girl's gravestone, they were hanging clothes out, and my grandmother said to my daddy when he was a little boy, "Go see whose gravestone that ghost is hanging on." And my daddy looked her straight in the eye and said, "That's swamp gas. There's no ghost." But anyway, he told me the whole story, and whether the brother who hanged himself had drowned his sister or not, I don't know. There were rumors and stories going around. We're talking, my daddy was born in 1909. So my grandmother was, just after the Civil War, in the 1880s. So.
I was wondering about that. I was wondering, is that the implication in the line?
I'm not sure.
It's interesting. It's the rat terrier, Bob, killed rattlesnake, semicolon. The Pritchard girl, beautiful and wild, found drowned and naked in Beach River, semicolon. Her brother hanged himself in the barn.
I wanted it to slow down just a little bit instead of comma. I wanted it to slow down, not a period, but I did want it to slow down so they get all three of those. My brother, my daddy's dog Bob, I heard stories about him all my life. He was a rat terrier, and he was a character. I've written many poems about him over the years. Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful use of association. You start with the rat terrier killed rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
The Pritchard girl drowned in the river. Her brother hanged himself in the barn. That's what we call poetry. It's really, really, really radical the way you do that. Let's get to your life a little bit. I've always known you as Mr. Brown, and I suppose I call you Bill now, which makes me feel sort of uncomfortable and strange.
No. Brown is good.
And as we joked,
Mike's been calling me Brown since the 8th grade.
Probably 8th or 7th or 8th grade.
Did you just come up with that on your own? Brown.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking psychologically.
It wasn't planned.
Yeah.
I think most people know you as Nashville's poet, so to speak. You're not from Nashville. You don't always talk much about yourself. Now I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with you.
Okay. Hey, great.
Oh no, something has happened here. Uh-oh. Well, we'll fix that real quick.
I was 4 or 5, I think.
So this is you at 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So where are you from?
Darkhorse, Tennessee, and I couldn't wait to leave it.
Why?
My hometown. It's a country club town. It's we weren't members.
Right.
I don't know why. The first time Darkhorse High School was integrated was my senior year, with 2 incredibly courageous black kids. The richest, the funeral home director's daughter, who had spent most of her life in France, and she could speak French better than the French teacher in Darkhorse High School, and Billy King, who was the son of the biggest Baptist black church And they had the courage to walk into 1,200 student high school as the first black people
Wow.
my senior year.
Wow.
And so I'd fallen in love with Bob Dylan already and his songs. He was one of the greatest poets that ever walked the face of the earth. I was in love with Peter, Paul, and Mary. Our record shop in Darkhorse quit selling their records because they were marching in Washington. And so my sister and I just said, this is wrong.
Right.
This is wrong. And we had maids all of our lives, and we loved them dearly. But thank God, the maid that I had as a child, her husband moved out to California, ended up being the foreman of an apple orchard in California, and came back and got Gracie and took her to California. So, because they didn't have children, and she was able to do that. And, so how would you escape? Where I lived, in Dyersburg, Tennessee. West Tennessee was basically North Mississippi. And I loved the area around Reelfoot Lake. That's 47 square miles of wilderness and swamp. And I love that. And so when I go back to West Tennessee, that's where I stay.
And that's where the eagles roost, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable place. But it just, anyway, so and also Bethel College, where I went to, which is a Presbyterian school, was very, very racial freedom consciousness.
Really?
Yes,
Now, where's that?
in McKenzie, Tennessee.
Interesting.
And it's a Cumberland Presbyterian, and all of my ministers, all of my professors, everywhere from Oxford University in England to Vanderbilt to University of Virginia, they were all really supporting civil rights. We had a plug for that. Which was kind of what it was, yeah.
So you're a bit of an activist.
I was, yeah.
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 You're also a Boy Scout, I think.
Oh, yeah.
A really cute one.
Oh,
I must
that's
say.
me as a Cub Scout.
Which one is you?
Yeah, which one is?
The one on the far right, I think.
Far right.
See the little guy?
That's what I thought.
Now this is your mother, I see?
That is my mother, and there's my sister Clay, Elizabeth Clay. And yeah, that's me.
And that's-
About 2 or 3 years old, I would say.
What kind of car is that? Is that a...
That is, my father was the head of the service department at a Chevrolet company, and so that was probably a 37 Chevrolet, or 47. 47,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're aging yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at that hat. Look at all those hats.
Oh, I love
Fantastic.
hats.
What
I
happened to
still do to
hats?
this day.
Yeah.
That's one of my railroad hats that my granddad had.
What
That's
was
like
your...
Spanky in our gang.
So now who is this?
Hey,
This
we
is-
love Spanky and I.
Yeah.
Who's on the far left on the bottom picture?
That is Betty,
It's a long time ago.
yeah, I'm trying to, oh gosh. I can tell you this. She lived
Betty,
on Speed.
that'll work.
Yeah.
And then on the right, is that your sister?
That's my sister,
And then that's you in that little white cap.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that Spanky in the middle? That looks like Spanky?
It does.
What was your first job?
Throwing papers for the commercial appeal in Memphis. I started when I was 13. I threw a paper route in the African American community in Dyersburg, and I had to collect as well at first, and then when I was 16, I got a motorcycle, and I started throwing bigger routes. And
So you're on a motorcycle, legit, like,
yeah, and
it takes some hand-eye coordination, you know?
right. And when my father died, I got a job stocking and selling clothes at a men's store, called Maynard's Men's Store in downtown Dyersburg, and I worked there until I got married, basically on and off.
Yeah.
different times.
You're from Dyersburg, you were living in Dyersburg, but you did paper route in Memphis? How did that work?
No, I just threw the Memphis paper.
Oh, excuse me, I understand what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
How far is Memphis and Dyersburg? How far?
78 miles south of Darkhorse.
Interesting.
Yes.
So there was no local Dyersburg paper at that time,
Yes, there was, the State Gazette.
but there was some competition from
Oh, yeah. Everybody wanted to read the
the big city paper.
the big city paper, right?
So you said that you wanted to escape. Where did you first escape to? Where was your second home?
Rookfoot Lake, and then when I went to Bethel College, and then I went to UT for 1 year, sprained my ankle, flunked out. Lived in a commune north of Berkeley as a hippie in California. Most of these things I could never tell any high school student. And got drafted at age 19, came home with Ted. Ted became the guitar maker for the Rolling Stones. He toured with them for 10 years. So I really got to escape when I came to Peabody to Nashville.
So you were drafted?
I was drafted, but my brother had been wounded in Vietnam, had been a doctor on the front lines with the Marines, and they let me join the reserves. So I went to Fort Knox, about 6 months after we got married, and I was there for 6 months in Kentucky. And getting married and having some really fine professors at Bethel really moved me in a totally different direction. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'd probably be a drug addict in California
Yeah.
instead of a teacher, professor, and fighting against the use of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you were a child, what were you afraid of?
Oh wow, ghosts. I wasn't afraid of anything as far as animals were concerned. I collected snakes. I had snakes from all over the world when I was in high school because I swapped with people. I had a 7-foot indigo snake from Central America, and our bedroom was really cold one winter. And I woke up and it had gotten out of the cage and it was wrapped around my leg.
So you're not afraid of anything, is what you're trying to tell me?
I was afraid of ghosts, and when I would have to go up to the bedroom, I would go up the stairs by this night window, and there's where my ghost stayed, my friendly ghost.
Right.
So he would help me get up the stairs so the other ghosts wouldn't get me. Till my dad came up to the bedroom and told me good night.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
all these stories of ghosts in here. You know.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the country area around the Tennessee River, yeah. As a matter of fact, I mean, I live now right outside, 30 miles from Adams. Speaking of ghost stories, Adams, Tennessee is one remarkable ghost story.
The Bell Witch.
Yeah,
That's the bell, I was going to say.
Yeah,
I think that's the bell next, yeah.
right.
What terrifies you now?
Oh, gosh. Driving in Nashville.
On the racetrack, as my grandmother used to call it.
Oh, Lord. You know, I used to come to Nashville all the time. I taught in the middle of the city for 19 years. I knew all the names of the homeless people. And now, gosh, I take Briley all the way around and come back. Or I've got a new way. I like to, I come up through Fisk and up that way from the country, you know, to get to into Nashville. And don't get on the interstate if I don't have to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're pretty fearless. One thing that I've always noticed about you is that you are unquestionably yourself. You are fiercely yourself.
I would like to hope that that's true now.
That's always been true.
Okay, I would. You know, we all, no matter what stage in life you are, you go through self-changes. And, but it seems like somewhere in my late 50s, though, I became really, really comfortable with myself in ways that I hadn't been. And I became very much a recluse, because we live out in the country right at the edge of a forest, and with 2 cats, and I write in the Springfield Library. I've written 4 or 5 books there over the years, and they don't know me as a writer. And so I'm anonymous, and I kind of like that out in the country where I live as a writer.
So no one's ever said, hey, you're always writing here, tell us about, who are you?
No.
Man, if I lived here, you wouldn't get away with that. I'd be like, who's this weird guy always writing in the library?
Yeah.
They don't even recognize it.
There's so much to talk about. I'm gonna have to cut it down. Let's just get to Suzanne. Let's just get to Suzanne.
Okay.
So, it's hard to know Brown without knowing Suzanne, his lovely wife. I'm gonna show some pictures. We have a little fun.
Oh, there's our wedding.
Look at that.
And we look like children.
You were.
They just got the softest little angel face.
We raised each other.
How old were you? I mean, I think he's not joking.
I was 20, just 20, and she was 19. Okay, yeah.
20 and 19. Now, where was this taken?
That was her uncle's house where the wedding was going.
And how much did your wedding cost?
Oh, Lord, not much. No.
Y'all were poor, right? You were quite poor. You were paycheck to paycheck, really hustling.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. Because, when I went to graduate school, she finished and started teaching in Metro in like kindergarten, 1st grade and stuff. And then when I left graduate school, she went to graduate school at night. And then I started teaching at Sumner Academy, private school in Gallatin. And I was there 2 years and thought, I've got to get in a place that gives me health insurance. And so I came to Metro and started teaching. Oh, they moved me around all over the place, and I finally ended up at Glencliff for 6 years. And then from there, West End was going to be the magnet school, and it shouldn't have been. And one of the black lawyers sort of stopped all changes in Metro schools because they found some areas around Donaldson where they were really they were not doing the quotas of African American students and other and
Or fulfilling the quotas that they were
he
supposed to.
stopped it for 2 years. So I stayed at West End and taught the kids who were going to be in that magnet school. I was asked to do that. And then 2 years later, they moved it to Unify, and that's when I transferred. And I was in England at that time, so Alan Kaplan and I, who were running the English department, and he was doing the literature and I was doing the writing. We moved back, we wrote back and forth from England. That was 1983. Yeah, about how we were going to pull this off.
Another picture of you and Suzanne.
Wow.
And look at my hair, that's after Fort Knox.
Here's a rather poetic picture of the two of you.
This is our first garden. Suzanne won 3rd place in the county fair with that pumpkin.
You look like a poet. Shirt off, bandana.
Hippie.
That was our old, we had a great garden.
Here's a picture of you poeting.
That's my little,
Looking good, buddy.
my little writing room, yeah.
Here's another picture of you poeting. That's your writing room right there, is the natural world.
Yeah,
Last question.
okay.
Just talk to me about the importance of family, love, a good partner in your life and in your work.
Suzanne and I are family people. And we are still very, very. As a matter of fact, at our age now, I'm 70, she's 69, we are deeply, deeply, deeply close to our family. And I feel weird because I'm the youngest, and now my brother, who's 9 years older than me, is 80, and we're just like this. But now I'm thinking, this is going to be weird to be the baby of the family at 70 and have to deal with my older brothers getting older, and and just so that's kind of strange, And losing your father when you're 16, and your mother when she was, I think, 84, and so my brothers and sisters, and they're all of their children. We had no children because our kids in school became our kids.
Yeah.
And so, because we started so young, and then Suzanne had me fixed.
Somebody's got to repair it.
But our nieces and nephews and their children are our family's big, and we're very close to each other, and it's deeply important to me. They were all there to Manassas when I read there in January, and we celebrated this book, and we celebrated my brother's 80th birthday. So we had 22 family members for dinner that night.
What'd you eat?
Oh God!
Did you cook?
I'd cooked thousands of quiches and salmon, because I cooked salmon.
Thousands of quiches, that's a poem.
That's poetic license, right?
Yeah, I did. Ham quiches for those who eat meat, but Suzanne's a vegetarian. She does eat fish, and so I had squash quiches and shrimp quiches, and we had salmon, baked potatoes, huge salads. Yeah, that type thing. And some wine, of course. Yeah.
We're out of time. I'm
Well-
so thankful that you did this with us today.
This has been a blessing to me,
Yeah.
and thank you all for coming. I
Give us
appreciate
one
it.
more time. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. Out in the front, we can take cash, we can take credit, so your no cash excuse won't work here, and he'll sign the book for you and get to know Bill a little bit.
Checks are fine.
And checks are fine too, and otherwise have a fabulous rest of your evening and have a blessed week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was fun.